You're listening to Banter with the Boys, talking all things sports. From betting and brawls, Super Bowl to Stanley Cup Finals. Get laced up. It's time for Banter with the Boys.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Banter with the Boys. Week 16 has come and gone. We have Week 17 coming up here. Back with me today, we have Smelty. How you doing? How you feeling, brother? I'm glad to have you back.
Yeah, man, I'm feeling a lot better today, that's for sure. My brain still ain't back. I was forgetting I locked my keys in my truck last week, and I had to break into that thing. I guess I only have one key, and I've owned the truck for 4 years. You'd think I'd get a second key by now, but that has not happened. So.
That is hilarious.
But we made it here. The truck's outside, so I got in.
There we go. So we back to first round projected, or?
No, I'm mid-second right now, but we're definitely raising the stock still.
All right. Well, we hope to have you back to that first round next week, boss.
You bet.
All right, well, let's get into football here. So Week 16, come and gone. We'll start this week with my Packers going down to Carolina, taking on the Panthers as a 4.5-point favorite. And boy, did they not cover that 4.5 points. Packers ended up squeaking this one out 33-30. We both had the Packers covering that 4.5 points. Kevin had the Packers covering that 4.5 points. And I really thought we were going to lose this game.
No kidding. And like you said a couple weeks ago when the Vikes won 3-0 against Vegas, we pulled out a squeaker. And that's what happened here. So, at least Aaron Jones was back a little bit to form.
Aaron Jones was the sole reason we won this game.
But that defense was really sketch.
I don't need to go into another Joe Barry rant like I did on the last podcast, but if that guy is here at the end of the year, well, he'll be here at the end of the year. If he's here at the start of next year, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't know if I can make it through another season with him as our D coordinator, man.
No doubt. What's the biggest issue, you think? I know I heard the rant last week. I listened to the pod. But what's the most glaring issue? What, in your opinion?
To me, it's just the lack of adapting throughout the game. And I don't know if it's the game plan coming in. Our game plan forever since he's been our coordinator is to play 10, 15 yards off the ball, which I just don't understand. We have speed on the outside. We have corners that can cover one-on-one situations, and he just will forever give up the underneath routes. And I really don't think it's a lack of talent. I sure hope not. We've invested so many first-round picks on the defensive side of the ball where I really don't think it's a lack of talent. Injuries have always plagued the Packers defense. That just seems to always be a thing. So, you can't really use that as an excuse. But I don't know. We show spurts during the 3-game stretch there. They looked great. Yeah,
no, they looked really good, actually.
And then against the Giants and the Panthers, we lay an egg. Like I said, I was shocked that we did not lose this game when it's all said and done.
Because who did you guys just beat recently? Did you beat the Chiefs? Yeah. You beat the Chiefs. Yeah,
and the Lions.
That was a great win. Yeah, beating the Lions too. That was Thanksgiving Day, wasn't it?
Yep.
Those are both big wins, and you could see the adjustments actually being made at halftime. And now it's almost like there was nothing. They're just kind of, the play calling is just kind of, I don't know, really pedestrian, really nonchalant, not really giving a crap almost. I don't know.
Right. How do you allow Bryce Young to go 23 of 36 for 312 yards? Bryce Young hasn't touched 300 yards since he was playing at Alabama. And against the Packers, let's just throw for 300. And to be honest with you, the Packers' Achilles heel has been their run game. We slowed them down. I wouldn't say bottled them up, but they only had 96 yards rushing as a team. So, we kept them in check.
But they really, the Packers defense couldn't really handle that middle passing area.
Yeah, and not having Devondre Campbell definitely hurt with that.
Which makes sense.
Quay Walker has done a very, very good job. I like him a lot, but Isaiah McDuffie. Trent's his brother who plays for the Chiefs. But Isaiah McDuffie, he's not a starting inside linebacker in the NFL, I guess. He's played good. He's played what's kind of expected, but he's not going to give you what a Devondre Campbell obviously would. And, I mean, the offense, they looked good. Jordan Love looked pretty good, especially being out. Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks hurt himself or got hurt on, his touchdown grab just before the end of the first half. So that hurt going into the second half. But, I mean, he was moving the ball around. Aaron Jones just tore him up. Aaron Jones was the player of the game, bar none. He got those touchdowns hawked from him down in the goal line. But And,
of course, counterpart A.J. Dillon grabs one.
Oh, yeah. And he
Jordan
was banged
Love
up coming.
the other one.
Yeah. So I don't know, man.
But it's nice. It's refreshing to see the return of the rushing game with Aaron Jones. I mean, that's got to be refreshing to see. And also, I mean, probably makes you feel at least a little bit better heading to Minnesota this weekend, which we'll talk on that later, obviously. But it's got to at least make you feel better about the game this weekend and your guys' chances in that game, even though you only beat arguably the worst franchise in the NFL right now.
There's no argument.
By 3.
There's no argument. They're hands down the worst team in the league. I mean, it's not even remotely close in my opinion. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it gives me a little bit of a hope. But the Vikings defense is buzzing right. They're playing pretty darn good right now. So
yes and no.
But it's at the same time, like Bryce Young throws for 312. What's Nick Mullins going to do? Throw for 450, bud?
Nothing, because in my opinion, Nick Mullins ain't starting. But we'll get to that.
That's interesting. But yeah, enough about the Packers. We hopefully the injury bug has come and gone now. In a perfect world, we get Christian Watson and Jaden Reed back next week. But I do want to touch on Tucker Kraft and how much promise we have in these 2 young tight ends with him and Luke Musgrave. 2 rookies. We very rarely have a good tight end presence. We really haven't since Jermichael Finley. Like Robert Tonyan had a good year where he had a lot of touchdowns.
Good year, yeah.
Yeah, literally one good year.
That was pretty much it. Yeah, Jermichael Finley. I forgot about him.
Yeah, I was
nice.
back in the heyday of the Packers. Yeah. But Tucker Kraft has really, really impressed me. 4 catches for 60 yards. He's just shown that consistency. You can dump it down to him. He's going to put his head down. He falls forward. He certainly don't take a hit without giving one back. And I like what I'm seeing in this young, offensive skill players that we have.
Yeah, the key word there is consistency. And I mean, you're still seeing it with Dobbs too. And Wicks was starting to be more and more consistent as the season has gone on. So that actually is nice to see. And honestly, if you look at Jordan Love's numbers and compare those to Patrick Mahomes' numbers of this season, I know Mahomes is having a bad season. I'm not ever going to say Love is Mahomes, but at least should make you feel better about hey, for me, if I was you, I would be okay with Love starting as quarterback of my Packers in 2024.
Oh,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I will never say my Packers again. That was ugly. Sorry.
That was awesome to hear.
Wow.
But no, I couldn't agree more. I as our thorough listeners have known, I've been for and against Jordan Love all darn year. So we'll see how that continues. But I can only expect him to grow and get better. His first year starting, like I said, very, very, very young skill players around him. They're only going to grow in the system and grow that consistency with J Love. And we still have Aaron Jones on the books. I know Rodgers is trying to get everybody of his old team to the Jets, but that's really interesting that the reports for that man are just crazy how much he just gets talked about with conspiracies and whatnot.
Media loves him.
Just loves him. But I mean, outlook going forward for the Packers. We got the Vikes this week, which we'll get into, and then the Bears the week after. We need to win both those games to have a fighting chance at the playoffs, and we need a little bit of help along the way. But let's get into your Vikings, man. Vikings they hosted the Detroit Lions, coming in as the Lions were a 3-point favorite in this game. I figured that spread was going to be a little bit more, but the Lions won this game pretty handily, 30-24, without a little promise for the Vikings. Vikings started off good, and then Detroit just kind of took over. For the record, all 3 of us had the Packers winning last week and covering that 4.5, and they did not. For this game, I did think the Lions were going to cover that 3 points. Smelty and Kev Dog did not. I ended up taking the dub on this one, but tell me how this game went. I wasn't able to really catch too terribly much of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of weird because the Vikings almost felt like they were in control most of the game, to be honest with you. I mean, you had Nick Mullins throw for 411 yards, and if you just looked at that and stopped right there, you're like, heck yeah, whatever. But then you look at the rest of it, right? The 2 tuds, heck yeah, 4 picks, also giving up 4 sacks. This dude was under pressure most of the game. However, I'm still a little bit concerned about that Lions defense with the season coming close to the end here and making that playoff push. And the Lions actually could make a play for that number 1 seed yet, even at this point. Do I think they're going to get it? No, but I think Lions fans rejoice. You won the NFC North. That's awesome. And to be honest, it's refreshing to see. It doesn't really hurt my feelings. But it's concerning because Nick Mullins was right there at the end of the game. He threw a pick on your guys' 5-yard line. And the ball was behind JJ and whatever. People are saying JJ could have came back to it. Yes and no. But the 4 picks just shows you, like, Mullins' issue is he doesn't keep his receivers out of trouble. You got the great quarterbacks like Tom Brady and even Mahomes, guys like that. They keep their receivers out of trouble because they're already looking at that. And it's just, that's what makes quarterbacks so great. And you saw how much the Vikings could have used Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins was in this game, the Vikings would have beat the Lions this week. I would almost guarantee that. And that's what's concerning to me for the Lions going into the playoffs, to be honest with you.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, just strictly looking at the box score here, like I said, wasn't able to catch too terribly much of this game, but and to me, the story of the game here, just the disparity in the rushing between the two teams.
Well, and that's just it, too. Like, the Vikings felt like they were playing from behind the whole game when they weren't. There's no reason they were forcing the throw all game, and it was so obvious. So obvious.
Yeah, I mean, 11 carries as a team is just wild when Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery had more than 15 plus each for the Lions. Now, granted,
they ate.
Yeah. Now, granted, the Lions, that's their bread and butter. They're a rushing team. Jared Goff's going to come in quotations, game manage, just do what he needs to do to not necessarily lose the game, but he's not going to win you a lot of games if that rushing game isn't producing. But 17 yards as a team?
Yeah, unacceptable.
You're not going to win a lot of football games in the NFL with 17 yards rushing.
No, so I can't even speak on the Lions' rush defense this game, to be honest, because there's just not big enough sample size, to be honest with you. There's really not. And that's why I'm not worried about the Detroit offense at all. I think they can hack it with almost any team in the league in a playoff game. But their defense, I'm concerned about. They let the Vikings almost come back and win that game when their quarterback at the time threw 3 picks in the game, and they had no business being in it at that point.
No, absolutely. I mean, you're 3 picks at that point to still even be in the game is just crazy. It's just crazy to me. And this Lions team, they're just so up in the air because, like, do they beat good teams? No. They don't really have like a solidified great win on the year outside of week 1 against the Chiefs. And what are the Chiefs right now?
Which was a bigger win in week 1 of the season than it would be right now.
Yeah, it looks a heck of a lot better now. And I don't know. I mean, it's cool to see the Lions win the NFC North for the first time in 30 years. I really like Dan Campbell. I like what he's done, with the team, and they've built into that mentality behind him. But I just don't think the Lions are going to do anything in the playoffs. I really don't. I mean, even going against, let's say that they're likely going to get the 3rd seed, the NFC East, NFC West will be the 1 and 2 more than likely. So that means you're going to play the 5th seed, which is either going to be likely the Eagles or the Cowboys. I don't see the Lions winning that game.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing they'd have going for them is that they'd be at home.
And they would need all of the home crowd as they could get for Uncle Mo, that's for sure. But I mean, if you look at I like how they match up.
They could play the Rams. Right now they're playing the Rams. If it ended today, blah, blah, blah. They would play because they're the 3rd seed today, right now, because of winning the division and blah, blah. So the Rams would
actually. They play the 5th seed.
They would play the 6th seed. The 5th seed would play the 4th seed, which would be the Buccaneers at the moment, who would win the NFC South.
You're right.
So if the Rams traveled there, boy, would that be a story. And that's what everybody's kind of like hoping for and stuff insane. At this point. That'd be kind of cool with Matt Stafford going back home, and
that would be crazy.
That'd be a crazy storyline.
I don't know if I could see the Lions winning that game with just how much Matt Stafford has to play for.
You know how bad he'd want to win that game? Just that game, whether they make it to the bowl or not, which they probably wouldn't, having to go through who else they'd have to go through, but that'd be a big win, like on a personal level. Be like, you know what? Won a Super Bowl. Went back, beat Detroit in the playoffs. I'm done. I'm calling it a career.
Yeah, what a way to walk off. But yeah, so looking at the Vikings, what their outlook is the rest of the year, they need to win the next 2 games. as we stand right now, they are not in the playoffs. They are one spot outside of it with a multitude of teams tied at 7 and 8, and then those last 2 playoff spots going to 8 and 7. The fifth seed's pretty much locked up. That first wild card spot's locked up between the Cowboys or Eagles. It literally is. They've
100%.
already clinched the playoffs.
Yep.
So it's going to come down to the Rams, Seahawks, Vikings, Falcons, and Packers and Saints. And then the Bucs with that too. Obviously, one of those teams is going to win the NFC South, and they play each other quite a bit here going to the end of the year. So
it could
Vikings
still
have
be
the
anybody.
Packers and then the Lions. That's a tough 2-game, man. To have to win both games, that's a tough 2 games.
No doubt. And like I know a couple pods ago I said, now obviously I made my prediction that the Vikes would win because I'm always going to do that. But a couple pods ago I did say like that the Lions would win in Minnesota, but then that the Vikings would win in Detroit in the final game of the season. Because think about it, if there's no way the Lions can increase their seed or would want to increase their seed, whichever they're sitting, would they sit anybody? Obviously, Dan Campbell's already came out and said absolutely not, pretty much.
I don't think so, solely because of how much they want, like how much greater feeling would it be, assuming the Vikings win next week. They have to win next week for this to even be a conversation. But for Dan Campbell to spoil another NFC team's playoff hopes the last week of the season.
He's starting everybody then.
Just like last week,
would.
just like last year against the Packers.
Yep.
Now, granted, the Lions needed, if they won that game, there was a chance they could have made the playoffs last year if the Seahawks would have lost. But
the Lions are still playing for that 1 seed right now today, so they could still sneak away with it. We don't think they will, but
if the Lions win next week, they're just in the hunt for that number 1 seed as the Niners and Eagles. The Cowboys won't be able to get it at this point. Assuming all of those teams don't lose the last 2 games, and the Niners have a really, really easy schedule going out.
Right. But just think, like the Vikings had, they had their own destiny in their own hands.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago.
Just like the Packers did last week before they lost to the Giants. They win the 4 games they're in.
They had it in Nick Mullen's hands, actually, more specifically, and now that's faltered. And now that's why that leads me into really quick before we move on, because we absolutely should, because we don't need to talk about the purple. But the Jaren Hall should start this weekend and the last week against Detroit, because you're on the outside looking in right now. Jaren Hall didn't look that bad against Atlanta. At least let him start the half. Now, that's weird, right? Just to throw Nick Mullins in the second half, if God forbid, then why don't you just start him? I get that. But you got to see what you have in Jaren Hall going into the offseason, too. And now with you on the outside looking in, I don't know. I'd like to see Jaren Hall this week. I really would. But my gut's telling me we're probably going to see Mullins. I think Dobbs doesn't have a shot at starting for the Vikings the rest of the season. People are trying to throw his name in there too, and I'm like, absolutely not. But Mullins pretty much did the same shit. So, but just better than Dobbs. So I don't know. I could see them starting the rookie. Otherwise, no matter what, the Vikings got a crazy offseason coming at the quarterback position as far as what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I don't see them making this change to an unproven rookie at this point. At least you know what you have in Nick Mullins, putting him in there.
You do.
I can see him having a very short leash, but I don't think Hall would be. I think Dobbs would come in before Hall.
Really?
Just because of the provenness, because they have so much to play for still. Where to put an unproven rookie who, did have a decent first half.
Well, first 2 series and then got concussion. That's all we have. Yeah. That's the only sample size.
Right. So I think there's just too much to play for right now.
And the season's still on the line, technically.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, so moving on. We had the Browns go down to Houston, take on the Texans. Houston was a 2.5-point favorite in that game, and they did not win that 2.5 or cover. Well, it doesn't matter because they had to win and win by 2.5. The Browns dominated them 36-22. Texans need C.J. Stroud back, brother.
They need him back. Yep. And I mean, even with Davis Mills in there, they were trying to force it again. And then, did he go down? Or
No.
why did Case play? Did they pull
Case
him?
started.
Oh, Case. Okay, Case started. I see that, and went 0 for 0 tuds, 2 picks, 3 sacks. Yeah, no wonder they put in Davis. But which is crazy because Davis Mills actually didn't play that bad last year, to the point where I was like, oh, okay, if they don't get a quarterback, which we all knew they were still going to take a quarterback, but like, oh, they might be okay.
Yeah, he's definitely played himself into what I would have thought would be the number 2 role over Case Keenum.
100%.
You would think. And, he played good, not great when he came in. The game was already pretty
much
over at
too
that
far
point.
Gone. Yep.
Footless Joe Flacco out there just doing what Joe Flacco does. 3 tuds, 2 interceptions, 368 yards. And my Mr. Amari Cooper.
That's all he's got to do. Huck it up to Amari, I guess.
What more do you need to do? You got Amari Cooper going for 265 yards on 11 catches and 2 tuds.
Yeah, that's honestly that's elite.
What
that's
more needs
elite.
to be said?
No, nothing. Nothing. You said it. Just the stat line is fine. And I know everybody's like, "Oh, you guys talk about stats." Yeah, right there. Because there's nothing else to say about that. Amari Cooper, elite, 11 receptions, 265, 2 tuds. Obviously, the number one target there in Cleveland. I do think it is interesting how that offense is looking with Joe Flacco at the helm. Now, I think we are just seeing some Fitzmagic type of situation going on. I don't think Joe Flacco could come back next season and do this for a full season for a team in the NFL. But it is interesting to see how their offense is looking with Joe Flacco running it compared to Deshaun Watson.
That's the kind of a topic of discussion right now. If Joe Flacco ends up coming, the Browns make the playoffs. Let's say they win 1, maybe 2 playoff games. They're not going to win the Super Bowl. I don't really see that. They have the defense for it, but they just don't have enough consistency to I'd say win it. But I mean,
why not? But
could you see this though? Look at Joe Flacco coming in and getting a maybe 1 or 2 year deal, 15, 20 mil each year, kind of like the Geno Smith deal.
For who? For Cleveland?
No, not for Cleveland.
Okay,
Cleveland's committed to Deshaun Watson. It's a fully guaranteed contract.
Yeah.
There's no debate who's the quarterback is going forward for Cleveland. There shouldn't be, at least. When you're paying him that much money, it's as simple as you just can't not play him. But for another team, somebody that has a young quarterback, maybe bringing that bridge, maybe win with the, whoever drafts like a Bo Nix, a Jaden Daniels. I don't think Shadur is going to come out this year, but Drake May, Caleb Williams, you think are going to just be day one starters, as they really should be as they're projected. But, like a Michael Penix, a Bo Nix, like I mentioned, a Jaden Daniels.
I like that idea. He probably played his way into that opportunity.
Learn behind a solidified veteran.
Super Bowl winner.
Yep. A consummate professional.
Oh.
So just see kind of what would happen with that. And, I would love to see it because he's obviously saying, he's proven he has some football left in him.
I'm very curious now. I think you hit that right on the head. I think there will be a team who has a plan for a younger QB, sign Joe Flacco to kind of be that bridge, to kind of mentor him. Because you see, sometimes it doesn't work out throwing a guy to a fire. Look at Bryce Young.
Yeah.
Look at
Justin Fields.
I know I'm going to date. Look at Justin Fields. Yeah. Look at Trevor Lawrence should have been day one starter. That's a whole nother story, actually, that I could go off on right now. And I actually like Trevor Lawrence, but it's time. But anyway, but like Christian Ponder, 15 years ago for the Vikings, he was the most starting ready quarterback in that draft. And they did that, and it hurt him ultimately and the rest of his career. So I think that's key to a quarterback like that goes later first, second, third round. Having that veteran presence would make a big difference, I would imagine, in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But, Flacco was really it was really Amari Cooper, but that was the story of the game. The Texans offense just couldn't get going. But, I mean, what are you expecting with a Case Keenum and a Davis Mills as your quarterback? You shouldn't at least expect too terribly much.
Look at, with Case Keenum and Davis Mills, because we mentioned his name a lot the past few weeks, look at Nico Cullen's numbers.
There isn't any.
Exactly. With no C.J. Stroud. That's interesting. Braven Jordan, 2 receptions, 27 yards, nothing crazy. Robert Woods hasn't really done much all year, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I found that interesting. I was like, And how many targets do you have? 6. I don't know. It's interesting. They need a C.J. Stroud in that building.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they need to trust the run game more. Now, granted, the game got out of hand pretty quick, but only having 16 rush attempts, similar to the Vikings. Now, different situation as the Vikings were still in that game the whole time when the Browns were kind of running away with it. And
leading the game, and you're still not running the freaking ball.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, same could be said about the Packers kind of gave up on Aaron Jones for a certain point there. And that was, again, no, we won't go back to the Packers.
Or the Vikings. Sorry.
But yeah, Browns took this one pretty handily. I like this Browns team a lot, Smeltsy. That defense is Super Bowl ready. They have the defense to win it. It's just a matter of, you look at the Browns rushing, the 30 yards and only 54 yards, averaging 1.8 yards a carry. That's not going to win in the playoffs.
That's horrible. But I think the Browns could honestly make a run this season, with Joe Flacco at the helm. I think their defense is good enough to make a run. They're definitely not a first-round exit, in my opinion. I think if you play the Browns in the playoffs, you can expect that to be a tough game.
Absolutely. Simply by the fact of their defense. And then if you look at what they have, they need to win one of their last 2 games. They have Jets-Bengals. Jets is a winnable game. Very winnable game.
So is Bengals, to be honest. That's going to be a good game. But
Bengals
so is
should
Bengals.
be good. Depends on what Jake Browning you get.
Yep.
But so we'll wrap up the Houston game here. Browns took this one. That brings, again, I took the Browns to cover that, Smelty took the Browns to cover that 2.5. I took the Texans. I was stupid. But we'll move on here. We have Cowboys-Dolphins, what many expected to be a very, very good game. Turned out to be, well, a pretty decent game.
Yeah, it was really back and forth early on. Really defensive early on, too. Just 2 playoff teams going at it, duking it out. That was on Christmas Eve, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, Christmas Eve. Yeah, Christmas Eve afternoon or whatever. I don't know. I mean, great preview to what we could see. I don't think we'll be seeing these 2 teams play each other in the playoffs.
No shot.
I don't know what the heck Dallas's deal is. Why can't they close out these better teams? And I know they made a run at the end of the game, but I mean,
they held Tyreek to under 100 yards. That's hard to do.
Yeah, well, okay, by 1 yard, yeah. But like Tony Pollard, he didn't look as polished this game as he has most of the season. Honestly, I like the way Dak plays. I think Dak plays good enough to win ball games, even in the playoffs. He's got to lose those sack numbers a little bit more. I mean, sacks are just drive killers. So I don't know. That's one thing I've been paying more attention to this season is how many times these quarterbacks are sacked, because no matter what, whether you lose 1 yard or 5 yards, you're going the wrong direction and you lost it down. No matter what momentum you just had on that drive, you might have just lost it. So that's one thing for Dak. He's just got to get the ball out.
Absolutely. He needs to get a lot better at that. I thought this game was going to have a lot more offensive fireworks.
No doubt. No doubt. That's what I mean.
It was going to be like a 31-28 kind of game, maybe.
It was surprisingly defensive.
Yeah, player of the game is Jason Sanders for Miami. I mean, the Dolphins won by scoring 1 touchdown.
Right. Yeah, I don't.
Now, granted, the Cowboys only scored 2, but if you were to tell me this game would have been won by field goal kickers.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. That's what I thought, too. I thought this would just be a shootout. Like, I thought maybe. I figured we'd definitely be over 42 points, 100%.
Yeah.
I figured we'd be in the 60 range, to be honest, 30-something to 30-something, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I would put the over-run on this one at like 55.5.
Like, I figured it'd be a Tyreek versus CeeDee Lamb battle, which, I mean, it still almost was.
It was for the most part.
It still wasn't. I don't know. It had the playoff feel, but it wasn't like. I don't know. I guess I don't know what I'm looking for. It wasn't entertaining to me. It wasn't. There's just so much back and forth.
Wasn't any fireworks.
Nobody really gained that momentum and held it this game, to me, until maybe the end when Dallas finally started kind of showing some life in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it had that playoff feel, though, just because it was so defensive heavy. So, I mean, it gave me that little itch for that playoff football, you know? But, Raheem Mostert, what a year he's having, Smelty. 21 touchdowns?
Right, which actually I did just see a thing here recently about him. Where is it here? It was right here. Where is it?
Dolphins record for a single season.
Well, he's got more offensive touchdowns than than like 5, 6, 7 teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I think I saw that too.
Oh, there it is.
I saw that
He's got more offensive touchdowns. This is when he hit 20. The Steelers also had 20. The Patriots had 20. Giants are at 18. Panthers are at 16. And the Jets are at 13. He's having himself a year.
He's having himself a year. He's if Tyreek wasn't having the year he's having, and CMC wasn't having the year he's having.
I was just about to say, don't say anything stupid right now.
Well, but it's just like, I mean, he has to be one of the finalists for Offensive Player of the Year.
Who, Mostert?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
he has to be.
I want to say he should be. He should be. I don't think he will.
Well, he'll be a finalist. You know, there's like 3 or 4 finalists, so it's going to be Tyreek, CMC. Who else would you put up there?
Well, before last night, Brock Purdy, but he could still play his way into that again.
Well, so, I mean, Purdy's not going to be for Offensive Player of the Year. That would be in the MVP talk.
Are we not talking MVP?
No, I'm talking Offensive Player of the Year.
Offensive Player of the Year. Oh, yes.
MVP's a quarterback.
Mostert should absolutely be part of the finalists for Offensive Player of the Year. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have the receiving stats that you would kind of expect, to be honest with you, with only 175 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns, but he has 1,000 yards rushing and 18 touchdowns rushing.
Dude, that 18, like, we don't see a lot of high-scoring, rushers anymore as far as touchdowns go. This isn't the same, like our boy LT and Adrian Peterson. It's not those days anymore. It's much more of a passing game. So you'll see a lot more running backs with the receiving touchdowns now.
Yeah, and to put that in perspective, too, CMC, he has 7 receiving touchdowns and 14 rushing touchdowns.
CMC's just, I'm sorry, dude, but we'll get to CMC literally in the next game here. But that dude's effing game changer. Whatever.
He's crazy. He's crazy. But so the outlook here for the Cowboys, they are out of the running of the number 1 seed, assuming that the Lions, Eagles, and Niners don't lose all of their last 2 games. That's just simply not going to happen between all of them. Well, the Lions or the Cowboys will take themselves out of that number 1 seed contention this week because they do play each other. And then the Cowboys end the year in Washington. So, that's a game they should be a win.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Cowboys, I could see them going 2-1 over this last stretch, or just even 1-1 at 11-6 or 12-5. They're in the playoffs, so nothing needs to be said about that. And then the Dolphins, they could still have that number 1 seed as well. Not likely with the Ravens having their last 2 games here. Well, the Dolphins actually play the Ravens this week, and they finish the season in Buffalo. That's a tough game because there's some
with
playoff
how hot
implications.
Buffalo is right now.
And Buffalo's probably going to need that game to win.
Oh, yeah.
So for the record, Smelty and I both had the Dolphins covering the 1.5 point spread, and they did indeed do that. So not a very great week for Smelty and I, but we'll wrap that up here after the next game. Our game of the week, the Baltimore Ravens traveling to San Fran, taking on the Niners. The Niners came in as a 5.5 point favorite in this game, and boy, did they get their butt whooped. Ravens won this game 33-19. There was never a point in time outside of the initial safety that I thought the Baltimore was in trouble this game. Brock Purdy took himself Brock Purdy took himself out of MVP contention, as the NFL's YouTube channel literally put as a caption as one of his picks. It was Brock Purdy throwing away the MVP.
Oh, I saw that.
The actual NFL branded
yeah, I saw
YouTube
that.
channel.
I was like, whoa.
Just hilarious.
And
as much as sorry, before you get in here, but as much as Purdy took himself out of the MVP race, Lamar might have cemented himself as the leader.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. Lamar played absolutely outstanding, especially away in San Fran. I really thought San Fran would come out strong here. And, I mean, 2 of Purdy's picks were those like tip up in the air pick or whatever. But, like, that's where that quarterback IQ comes in. Like, don't throw that ball then. You got a wall of dudes in front of you.
No, those are fluke plays. I mean, it's a throw you have to make. And if you look at the one, especially that Marlon Humphrey tipped, well, both of them, you could say, like, there's literally, so an NFL football field's 53 yards wide? I'm almost positive it's 53 yards wide.
That sounds right.
There's 48 yards that ball could have landed, that neither one of those is a pick. It's such a fluke play.
No, I did go right to him, but
right. But even the other 2 picks are inexcusable.
But 3 picks in the first half, I mean, you're not going to win the game.
No.
And we already talked about with Nick Mullins, and they still almost somehow won the game. But these were early enough that they could have still corrected that. When he threw his 3rd pick, it was only, oh man, what was it here? It was only 10 to 5 when he threw his 3rd one, I'm pretty sure. Because I watched a good chunk of that game. They were still in the game. And they still couldn't get it together.
Yeah, it was 10-5.
Purdy just looked off. He just looked off. But Baltimore's defense played outstanding as well. They were coming after him all game.
that was really the story of the game, in my opinion, is how good this Baltimore defense looked. And they've never gotten their flowers this year. They're the best defense in the NFL.
No, are they really?
Yeah, statistically, it's like overall defense, they're the best defense in the league, brother.
Wow.
That trade that they made for Roquan Smith is going to go down as the best move of the year.
And he ate too.
He always does, dude. The combo of him and Patrick Queen on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Queen's a sore spot for me because the Packers could have drafted him in the year he was drafted. And I don't remember who we drafted that year, but it was not
Patrick Queen. Yeah.
But yeah, the Ravens offense looks pretty unstoppable at this point. Their receivers are getting open. They're making plays. Zay Flowers is fun to watch, bro. Just fun to watch, man. He's fun to watch. And Purdy lost this game. Lost the MVP. The Ravens just dominated. If it's a Super Bowl preview, I'm excited for the Super Bowl because you know one thing, Kyle Shanahan will make adjustments.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. No, for sure. And then, I just want to touch on my MVP. I don't give a dang what the league thinks or anybody else. Dude, CMC is the league MVP in my eyes. That team is different without Christian McCaffrey back there. Like, you could try putting Debo back there, and he's definitely going to be better than probably any other option you have available to you. But just CMC's big play ability anytime he touches the ball, whether it's a handoff, a pitch, catching the ball, it doesn't matter, dude. Just put it in his hands. When the game was tight still early on, and he took this, I don't think it was a rush. I think it was like a short pass, but he just turned it on as soon as he caught the ball and took it. Was it a rush? Dude, he took when they were still in the game, like that was such a huge play. Like that's just putting the team on your back at that point. Guys missing tackles, he's just shrugging them off. Like there's nobody better that does it right now.
I couldn't agree more. I really think Christian McCaffrey, if you look at the actual definition of the award, the most valuable player, he is more valuable to the Niners than Purdy, but I don't know if I could say that.
I don't know if he's going to win, right?
I don't know if he could. I don't know if I could sit here and say that he's more valuable to the Niners than Lamar is to the Ravens.
But like we've seen, is Huntley still Lamar's backup?
Yeah, I believe so.
He's not horrible when he's had to come in to relieve
Nor is
Lamar.
Elijah Mitchell.
No, but it's still, that's not CMC. And same way, Huntley's still not Lamar Jackson. So it's, yeah.
Right.
I
But
think
yeah,
CMC will be the only non-quarterback Tyreek could push for it to be the only non-quarterback in the MVP conversation.
I don't think Tyreek should be in that conversation.
You don't think so? How many yards is he at right now?
Well, he's probably going to break 2K. He'll more than likely break the single season record. But it's just to me,
you're going to break the single season record, and he's not in the conversation for MVP.
I think Tua is more valuable to that team than Tyreek.
That's crazy. Tua is. He's playing out of his mind this year.
I think Tyreek has the Offensive Player of the Year award in the bag, even more than CMC. And that's a debate I would love to actually sit there and look at.
That would be interesting.
But it's just, the MVP award's never going to be won by anybody but a quarterback. Usually it's it's the quarterback on the team with the best record.
And again, we haven't seen one since 2012. That's why.
And it took AP almost, and there was so much more than that, as we discussed.
Yeah, the storyline and stuff.
Yeah, but it's just, I don't know. I'd love to, and we will, once the season's kind of wrapped up and we're getting into the off season here, we'll have some, predictions on awards and whatnot, and we can kind of hash it out at that time. But should Christian McCaffrey be in the discussion? I think over Brock, absolutely.
Well,
I wouldn't be mad at a finalist of, let's say, Tua, Lamar, and CMC.
Right, in which out of those three, CMC's getting third, unfortunately.
Yeah, I could see him getting more than Tua just because of Tyreek Hill.
But you think Lamar Jackson right now is the MVP of the league?
I think so. If I were to have to cast a vote, yes. Just because of what he means to that team.
And it is hard to argue that. It really is. Because he's such a he can do anything.
He really can. And but let's wrap up week 16 here. Ravens took this one for the week. Then Smelty and I both at 2-3. There's a reason Kevin is not a every time member of this podcast, as he's not a football enthusiast as Smelty or I. But he did go 0-5. We'll just pass that along and move on.
Yeah.
911. What's your emergency?
Well, that leads us to tent talk this week. We'll start with some injuries. Trevor Lawrence, sprained right shoulder, availability up in the air. He has a sprained AC joint to be exact. Boy, is he valuable to that Jaguars team. As we stand right now, they are leading their division at 8-7. The Texans and the Colts are, however, tied with them at 8-7. I don't know if they're going to be able to do anything without Trevor. He's just too valuable. They have an easy schedule to end the year, playing the Panthers and the Titans, but they need Trevor, brother.
They got that going for them, though. Who's their backup right now again?
The Jaguars?
Jags, yeah, I don't even know.
CJ Beathard, maybe?
Oh, that sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right. At least they do have an easier schedule, so that's what they have going for them. However, who do the Colts play their final game?
The Colts play the Titans. The Colts play the Texans their final game. Week 18 is Colts Texans.
That could be a good game.
And next week
CJ's
the Colts
back.
play the Raiders.
So and the Raiders are all of a sudden trying to make a statement.
The Raiders could come. The Raiders could mess around and sneak into the playoffs here.
They are 7-8. Ooh.
The Raiders could mess around and win their division.
The Jaguars' playoff destiny is in their hands. And it's also in the health of Trevor Lawrence. So, yeah, that is a big one. We're going to have to see if he's ready to play. Yeah, it's kind of a 50-50 thing. We really don't know yet.
I think he's going to just because he is a dog. He has the grit.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, they need him. Moving on over to the Dolphins. Jalen Waddle, high ankle sprain. I don't think the Dolphins really are going to play him these last two games. There's no reason. There's no need. They got the playoffs locked up. They just save him for the playoffs.
And they got the division locked up too, don't they?
No. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Division locked up.
Why would you then?
Why would
you?
You
Might as well not. I wouldn't. You still have Tyreek. You still have Mostert.
But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're playing for nothing.
Can they even get the number 1 seed at this point? Well,
yeah.
They play Baltimore this week.
Yeah, they could. If the Ravens win Week 18.
If he's not 100% with a high ankle sprain,
there's no reason.
Don't play him.
There's no reason.
I wouldn't play him.
Like, I'd rather have him 2 weeks off than have him play 2 weeks and get a week off.
100%.
All right, then we're going to move over to your Vikings. We have a couple injuries to talk about. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. 2 big playmakers got hurt in that game. Jordan Addison hurt his ankle. He's day-to-day, but the big one here, Smelty, TJ Hawkinson, ACL, MCL. He's done for the year.
Yeah, and that's just unfortunate with how much he's been coming on to as of late, being that big target, making his money. It's definitely a big loss. You know, so you're going to see Josh Oliver pick up more of those receptions, even though he is a blocking tight end. He has actually come up in the clutch a couple times this year, so I do expect to see him get a couple catches. And then Jordan Addison, I'd imagine he will play this weekend, especially with potentially the season on the line going up against Green Bay. I mean, that's shaping up to be a big game. Sunday Night Football, you know what it is. Packers versus Vikes, but yeah. And on the defensive side of the ball, you got DJ Wanham. For those that don't know, he's kind of the counterpart to Danielle Hunter. Done for the season as well with a torn quad. So, I mean, that's just a big loss to a guy who I believe is also on a contract year. He may stay for cheap, but I mean, that with the injury like that, it just sucks. That's going to be a long recovery.
Yeah, it sucks because he's a good young looking kid too.
He is. Yeah, he is young, and that's the thing. He almost looks exactly like Danielle Hunter, like body shape and everything. Like he's another strong human being, another guy that's perfect off the edge. It just sucks for him. Yeah,
it really does. And then we had Brock Purdy get injured, his second stinger in as many weeks. He's expected to play this week. Not much needs to be said about that. And CJ Stroud is tracking to play this week as well. So for some news, Mason Rudolph named the starter for next week as Kenny Pickett is still recovering. And boy, did Mason look good last week, Smelty.
He really did, actually. I didn't expect that at all out of Mason. I'm actually not a Mason fan at all. I don't like the guy, but he absolutely played way better than Mitch Trubisky. So absolutely, I would start him over Mitch at this point if Kenny Pickett can't go, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as it stands right now, the Steelers are on the outside looking in. But there is a bunch of teams tied at 8 and 7.
They absolutely
they control
still
their
have
destiny.
a shot. Yeah, absolutely.
They control their destiny. Then we move on to Tommy Cutlets. He got benched. Tyrod Taylor came in. We don't need to spend much time on this. The Giants aren't doing anything. They're already eliminated from the playoffs. But what a story Cutlets has been, eh?
It is interesting, though, that I don't even think he's came out. Dayball just came out and said who's starting. I think it's a toss-up right now.
Who cares?
And it's interesting, though, that Tommy Cutlets has been making all these headlines and whatnot, and now Maybe the end of the season we may not, when he got nothing to play for, which is weird.
Yeah. And then Pat Mahomes came out and said, if we clean it up, we can beat anybody. I do think that's true. The Chiefs offense, they doesn't look the same, obviously, but their defense is still top notch. They have some talent on the offensive side of the ball. I think they just really do need to clean it up. What they really need to do is get more rhythm throws for these receivers to build momentum, and for Mahomes to get involved in the offense and just get going. They need to stop relying on his greatness. He's going to give you the greatness, but that can't be your main focal point of forcing him to do that for this offense to produce.
No, 100%. I agree. And plus, I mean, Kansas City's a playoff team. You know, we're going to see what they do come playoff time. I think they will come alive like they do, like Mahomes does, and we're going to see them play close games. And I think they still have an opportunity to win those games. Now, do I think they can beat anybody? This season, that's a stretch for me. I think they're sputtering at the wrong time to be sputtering right now. So it's just too much going wrong at the wrong time. But do they have time to fix it? Absolutely. They play Cincinnati this week. They should be able, if they win against Cincinnati, they should be able to handle them. Do you know who their last game of the season is?
I can get
Kansas
that
City?
for you here in just 1 second.
I'm just curious.
They end the season in LA to play the Chargers.
Kansas City should be 11-6 at the end of the year and win their division.
No reason they're not.
And win their division. If they don't, they could be a first-round exit in the playoffs. I think they'll make the playoffs no matter what. Well, I mean, if they lose both, they're in trouble. I don't know. I think they're good enough to make the playoffs and win the division. I don't think they're good enough to make a deep run this season with how well the Dolphins are honestly playing, and also, obviously, the Ravens. But I don't see them. I think the Browns could beat them.
Yeah, I think sitting here saying, like, we can beat anybody, I do think that's true. Do I think they will? No, but when you have Pat Mahomes at quarterback, I'll never rule them out.
What if they run into Buffalo in the playoffs this year? Do you think they beat Buffalo at this point?
I think Buffalo has too many weaknesses and injuries on defense for them to make an actual playoff run.
Fair.
They're just not deep enough.
They're
playing out of their mind.
They're riding the momentum right now.
They are. But it's also, like, assuming the Chiefs win their division, Arrowhead's a whole nother ball game in the playoffs.
It is. No, it is. Yep, 100%.
All right, so that goes, we're going to finish off the tent talk here with the Rodgers watch. There's not much Rodgers watch, as he's not going to play the rest of the year, but he did come out on Pat McAfee's show today, and there was like, the fullback that's been in the league for 10 years got sent to the practice squad because they opened up a roster spot for Rodgers. Rodgers told the team to put him on IR. They just didn't. I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah. So he came out and said that. It's so he has the ability to practice, so he can kind of start building that chemistry with the team. But yeah, so he didn't even want to actually be activated once the Jets.
Because he can't practice with the team if he is on IR, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
You have that 3-week window that opens up that allows him to practice, but then there has to be put the active roster to actually practice.
Yeah, that's kind of messed up. That's weird. That's weird that he asked the team and they just didn't.
Now on the good thing about that is the fullback that got put to the practice squad. I can't remember his name, but he's a 6-year NFL vet. So when he was moved to the practice squad, his contract was already fully guaranteed. So he's not losing any money going to the practice squad or being cut.
But if you're the Jets, why do you do that? What is the purpose of it?
So you could have him practice.
Get more continuity with the team.
Simply just allow him to practice.
I
don't get it.
I don't know. I feel like you got a lot
of
of time in the offseason for it. But
exactly.
But I guess at this point, too, what are the Jets playing for? Nothing. So it's
right.
It's a
What's
wash.
a fullback on the active roster really going to matter?
I feel bad for the guy, but yeah, it's a wash for the team as an organization, whatever.
Yeah. All righty. That moves us to my favorite segment of the week.
Genius!
Smelty, your bonehead move of the week, brother. What do we got?
Yeah, so I have absolutely nothing, actually. You brought to me the bonehead of the week, and I think that's amazing, so why don't you take it away?
We'll run with it this week. Mike Florio, going into the Niners-Ravens game, made a comment that media pundits are going to make, and boy, did the Ravens run with it. Pardon my explicitive, but he came out and that's not the right word.
Expletive?
Expletive. That's why I talk football, and I'm not an English teacher. But he came out and he said that the Niners were going to kick the out of the Ravens. Lamar heard it. He talked about it after the game, And he basically just came out and Lamar was just like, why do you say that? When you're talking that kind of punditry, it's to the point where it's disrespectful. At the end of the day, they're all NFL players. Every single one of them is providing for their family, and it is their job. To say that they're going to come out and kick the out of them when the Ravens have done nothing but prove they're the best team in the AFC, arguably the best team in the NFL, you could strongly make that argument now that they just manhandled the Niners. I just don't think those comments need to be made. And why give anybody any fire at
Extra
this point
fuel,
in the season?
100%. Well, and like, if you're going to take it personally, then that just, you got to grow up a little bit. But if you're going to take it as disrespect, like on the season and what you guys have done that season, absolutely that's disrespectful. There's no reason that we, like, shoot, we wouldn't have even said that. We wouldn't have said the Niners were going to kick the out of the Ravens. Now, I know, let's see, actually, we all said that the 49ers would win the game, which did not happen. But we figured it would be close.
It'd be one thing if the Niners were playing the Panthers.
Or if it's like our team or something, right? Like, I think the Vikings are going to kick the out of the Bears.
Yeah.
Well, that's just normal NFC North.
But you got the best team in the NFC playing the best team in the AFC. Both teams are buzzing. Like, what are you doing? Now, he's come out after and said it was a mistake, and of course, he's going to cover his tracks. But,
somebody told him to say that.
And at the end of the day, what Lamar basically said was like, it's disrespectful. At the end of the day, he's saying what he needs to say to get more views, and that's what they're going to do.
Right.
So Lamar and Lamar just said, yeah, I mean, it's just like you don't have to say that kind of thing. It's just the level of disrespect is what really got him.
Trying to stir the pot right before the game. Now, I didn't know that Lamar heard it before he heard it.
I don't know if
he
necessarily heard it before, but a reporter asked him a question, and then he had obviously seen it with his answer.
Sure. yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, that's all we got for you for the Bonehead Move of the Week. We might have some better one for you next week. But let's wrap this thing up, Mr. Smelty. So we got Week 17 upon us. We'll start this week. Green Bay's coming up here to the Twin Cities and taking on the Vikings. The point spread has changed from last week, and now Minnesota is a 1.5-point favorite. Tell me why you're taking Minnesota this week, Smelty, because I'm sure you are.
I was just about to say, you don't even need to ask me for my pick. You already know. It just depends on who starts at quarterback, to be honest with you. But either way, they got to get the running game going a little bit more this week. And if they do that, I think they can pull it off. It's going to be a lot of Justin Jefferson and hopefully Jordan Addison. But you'll probably see KJ Osborne get a little bit more involved with TJ going down now. Yeah, I mean, I think the Vikes cover that for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree. I think the Packers are going to win this game. They don't need to cover it. They just need to win. So to me, it's going to depend on Jair Alexander and if they're going to allow him to travel and cover Justin Jefferson.
They might as well.
We haven't proven that we're really going to do that, and Jair hasn't been himself this year.
He hasn't.
Battled injuries, but this last game was actually the first game that we had Jair and Eric Stokes on the field since 2021.
I like Eric Stokes, too.
I do, too.
What has been his deal? What's Eric?
Towards ACL.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah,
I remember Stokes.
ACL.
I really liked him coming out of college.
Yep. He was one of them Georgia guys we got.
That you guys picked him up.
Yeah, he's super fast. So he has the speed, he has the athleticism, he has the build, he has the body for an NFL corner. So I like seeing them both on the outside. But it's going to come down to if Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and Dontavian Wicks play. Like, we're going to run the ball. We're going to be successful running the ball, but we have to have some sort of outside threat. And Vikings defense is good, not great. They're playing decent.
They're without one, maybe two of their top corners.
Yeah, It'll be interesting to see if Devondre Campbell comes back this week, if Darnell Savage comes back this week, but it's going to come down to Jordan Love making plays.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that.
Yeah, but for the record, I got the Pack. Smelty has his Vikings. Then we move down to Dallas. We got Detroit taking on the Cowboys. Cowboys are a 6-point favorite on this one, Smelty. I don't know where I'm at. To be honest with you. That's a lot of points.
I'm going with Detroit simply because of that fact. I really wanted to go with Dallas, especially Dallas at home. It's pretty freaking hot right now. But just, it's the 6 points. I think Detroit is better than that. And I think they're going to show that this weekend.
I disagree. I think the Cowboys are going to cover that 6 points. The Cowboys need a good, solidified win against a good team.
This would be that.
Detroit does not have the defensive that the Dolphins do.
They don't. No, 100% they don't.
They do not.
100%
So
they don't.
I think that Dak's going to eat on this Cowboy defense, this Lions defense. Tony Pollard's going to get the ball rolling here, and I just don't know if the Lions will be able to have their rushing prowess that they've had this year against the Cowboy defense.
I think the Lions are so high right now on their NFC North division championship win. Like, I think that two-headed monster in the backfield is going to come alive, and Goff is going to do enough to win.
Yeah, we'll agree to disagree on this one, but I like the disparity. That leads us to Miami going down to Baltimore. That is our game of the week this week. What a game it should be, man. These are two high-powered offenses, two teams that are playing out of their mind. Their defenses are just on fire. Baltimore comes in as a 3.5-point favorite as the home team in this one. I don't know, Smelty. I think I have to go Baltimore. I really do.
That's the thing. It's really hard to argue that 3.5 for me. It really is.
I think that's a little bit too much. I see this as a 1.5-point spread, personally.
That's the problem. That's the problem I'm having. So you know what? I'm going Miami. I think they're going to surprise some people. I think they're going to show they're for real and have an outside shot at that number 1 seed. Would actually take it over at that point because they would hold the tiebreaker over Baltimore. But I think they're going to show that they're not to be messed with this week. And no wonder that's the game of the week. That should be another high-powered game. But we also thought that with the Ravens and 49ers, and it did turn out to that. So if that Baltimore defense shows up at home, it could be over early. But I am going with Miami here.
I like it. I like how we're not on the same side here, but I think Baltimore is going to cover that 3.5. I just don't see the Dolphins defense being able to really contain Lamar. And I really, really like Baltimore in this one, especially at home. And if Baltimore wins, they pretty much lock up that number 1 seed. So they have something to play for.
They would. This is a great game.
That leads us down then to Cincinnati taking on Kansas City. Cincinnati didn't look good last week. Chiefs didn't look good that last week. 7-point favorite for the Chiefs. That's way too many points. Way too many points. But I just think Joe Browning has come back to earth. The Chiefs are going to cover. They need this game. Joe Browning. Yeah, he used to be Joe Browning, but Jake Browning, he's come back to earth. The tape's out on him.
Jake, dang it.
Yeah, he's back to Jake from State Farm. But Kansas City's going to cover that 7 points. They need this game. Kansas City needs this game. It's in Arrowhead.
I'm agreeing with you 100%. 7 is a lot, but just how, like, exactly what you said. Literally how Cincinnati played last week and how Browning specifically played in Kansas City. It's going to be a nightmare for them. I don't think they have a shot this weekend.
Well, we're on the same side for one this week, Smelty.
Yeah, don't get used to it.
All right, the Week 17 wraps up for our games here with New Orleans going down to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's a 3-point favorite in this one, and this has so much playoff implications, it's not even funny.
It really does, for more than just those two teams.
This is going to be like a forecasting kind of what's going to happen with the NFC playoff picture. What do you got, man?
I'm taking Tampa Bay all the way. Baker Mayfield has played himself into an opportunity to be the starter of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2024. I think they absolutely should give him that opportunity, and I think they will. But as far as the rest of this season goes, they win this weekend. I think he's really starting to get hot at the right time. And I think they'll make a deep run? No. But I think they'll win not only this week, but win the NFC South.
I agree with you. I think the way that the offense is clicking with Baker and Mike Evans, I think Baker's played himself into a Geno Smith contract like we kind of touched earlier. 2 years, 40, 45 mil.
Yeah, why not?
He's deserved
if you're
it.
Tampa,
that's for
why
sure.
not at this point?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? You're not going to they're not going to have a low enough draft pick to grab one of the top quarterbacks. There's no free agent quarterback that's really of
Kirk
name
Cousins.
outside of Kirk. And I think Tampa Bay is going to, like you said, win this game, lock up the NFC South. They wouldn't lock it up with this game, but, it's kind of just going to
lock it up.
Right,
depending
but lock it
on
up.
what Atlanta does in Chicago this weekend, too.
Yeah, and Derek Carr is just not the quarterback
He's
for
not.
me.
He's not. And, I really thought that he would be – I thought it would light a fire under him to be in New Orleans, definitely in that atmosphere for one. But two, just new scenery, and I really thought it would be a new start for him. And he just really hasn't shown that this year. So
really
I don't know
hasn't.
what they're going to do, but New Orleans, I think, is going to be searching for a quarterback this offseason.
Yeah, didn't they pay Derek Carr, though?
They did.
4 years, if I'm not mistaken.
They got to get rid of him. They got to do something. Who's going to take him? Nobody.
Take him. And who are you going to replace him with?
I don't give a dang. Jameis.
Yeah, that's
I know.
That's a conversation for another time.
I mention Jameis every other pod, but
Alrighty, Smelty. Well, it's been a blast, brother. We have a good slate of football ahead of us. I love this time of year, getting down to the nitty gritty. As always, like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you next week.
Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. Tune in next time for more Banter with the Boys.